Hey everybody, we're on day 5 now of lesson 13. So this is the guided practice page, and like I said in the last video, when we get to days 4 and 5, you know you're getting ready for a lesson quiz. So we're going to do a few things, and one of the things we'll do is do a problem which is very similar to something you're going to have on the quiz. All right, you can see with the target, it's everything, percent increase, decrease, and percent error. And I've also included all 8 standards for mathematical practices. I think we use all 8 every time we do a lesson. But in this case, I think we're going to focus on making sense of problems and persevering and solving them. I would say attending to precision, right? Anytime we're getting ready for an assessment, I'm probably going to say we should be focused on attending to precision. All right, there you have it. All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, so as always, I need to have you make sure you're handing in your work. All right, I don't think we need to talk about this anymore. You're used to this now. All right, here's what I'd like you to do for the warm-up, though. All right, first of all, I want you to write down warm-up. All right, and I think this one doesn't really need much explanation. I want you to pause the video in just a minute, and I want you to try to figure out how many blocks are in this picture. And I'd like to see on your paper some sort of explanation about how you determined how many blocks were in this picture. All right, so go ahead, pause the video and give that a try, and then when you're ready, I'll come back and I'll let you know what the answer is. All right, I'd love to know if you got this right. All right, so let me know if, yeah, I got 38. If you take a look at this, there are several ways to do it, but I actually try to start by looking at the number of blocks on the bottom row. And one thing you have to assume here, and I didn't tell you this because I wanted you to think about it yourself, but you need to assume that everything you can't see has blocks under it. Now, that should make sense to you. Because anything above it would require having blocks beneath it, right? So I'm kind of hoping you figured that out on your own. But right here, I took a look at this and I'm like, okay, that's 4 this way, 3 this way. Remember the whole discussion we've had about arrays? That works really well here, right? I've got 3 groups of 4 blocks. So groups of, that's exactly when we multiply. So 12 plus this other one here, 13. So 13 in this one, and then this would be also 13, but minus 1, so that's 12. So 13 plus 12. All right, so let me just grab my paper and make sure I'm adding correctly. So 13 plus 12 gives me 25, right? And then I've got 9 here. And it looks like I've got 4 here, so I'm thinking, well, 9 plus 4, that's 13. So then when I add 25 and 13, sure enough, that gives me 38. All right, let's try another one. All right, I want you to do the same thing. Right, I want you to take a look at this one, see if you can figure out how many blocks there are. All right, when you're ready, get the recording going again. All right, this one has 35. I'm not going to go through the whole process of this one again, but you can do it if you didn't have the correct number. Start by figuring out how many are in each layer, or you don't have to do it that way. There are so many other ways you could do it. I don't know, you could take a look at how many are in each column, like go with the bag. So tell you what, if you did it another way, I'd love to know how you did that, right? How did you count the blocks? Did you get 35? All right, so write that down. Yeah, write down how you counted. I told you my first method, but you guys might have had some better method or different method. They're all good. All right. All right, let's move on to the lesson. All right, so problem 1. And of course, I want you to write this down. I always want you writing everything down. You do have a problem very much like this on the quiz. All right, so I want you to read it to yourself and think about it while I'm reading it out loud. So it says, Kayla is selling candy bars to raise money for her basketball team. She has 3 weeks to sell as many as she can. The first week, she sold 40 candy bars. During the second week, she sold 75% more than she did the first week. And then during the third week, she sold 30% less than she did the second Uh-oh, little spelling error there. The second week, that should say. All right, so here's what you need to figure out. Determine how many candy bars Kayla sold for the second week, then determine how many she sold for the third week. And then once you've got that, you can do C, figure out how many she sold all together. All right, so go ahead and pause the video, figure this out. And I'm gonna have to fix this slideshow up. That's a pretty bad misspelling. All right, get it going again when you're ready for the answer. All right, you can see that I had the same slide. All right, so I still have the same misspelling, but let's take a look at the answer. That's the important thing. All right, so here's what I did, and you might have done it a different way. And if you did do it a different way, I'd love to have you tell me that on your paper. You know, here's how I did it. All right, my way is not the only way. All right, but here's what I decided. All right, she sold 75% more than she did the first week. So the first thing I did is figure out, all right, what's 75% of 40? So we want to figure out that. And I got 30. And then I just added 40 plus 30 together, and that's 70. So 70 is 75% more than the first week. Or remember this method, if she sold 75% more than she did the first week, then total, that's 175%. Right? The 100 is the 40 from the previous week. That would be 100% of the first week. But she sold 75% more than that. So 175. So you can just make that into a decimal by moving the decimal point back too. So 1.75 times 40, that gave me 70 right away. All right, so either way you do that, you get the same answer. And if you had a different way of solving it, let me know. Right? For letter B, 30% less than she did the second week. All right, well, she sold 70 the second week. We just figured that out. So this is one of those problems where you have to answer the first part before you can do the second part, and then you have to answer the first and second before you can do the third. Right, so we have to use the 70. If she sold 30% less, I figured that out. 30% of 70 is 21. 70 minus 21 is 49. Right? So that's how I did that. Or I'm like, okay, 30% less, 30% less would be 70% of. Right? Listen to that again. I'm always trying to think about that. 30%, I automatically am thinking 70. I'm thinking of combinations that make 100. Right? So if it's 30% less, it's 70% of. So I could just figure out 70% of the 70. And I prefer to use decimals, by the way. If you have a number in parentheses and there's no operation between them, that's multiplication. So this is a multiplication problem. So 0.7 or 7/10 times 70, or 70/100 times 70, you can say that anyway, is 49. Right, hopefully that made sense. And now that I know it's 40 the first week, 70 the second week, and 49 the third week, I can add those together to get a total of 159 candy bars. Nice job, Kayla. All right, let's move on to the rest of the lesson. Again, fix anything up that you missed, and if you had a lot of trouble with that, let me know. Or just say I had a lot of trouble with it. All right? All right, so here's what I'd like you to do next. I'd like you to number your paper 1 through 6, right? And do your best on these. Take your time. Think about things, right? And then when you're ready, start the video up again and compare your answers. All right, so you should pause the video now, take some time to do this, and then come back. All right, so here we go. I have basically copied off the teacher text for you here, and you can see the answers here. So number 1 is letter D, $14. Number 2, letter B, 37.5%. Number 3, it says select all that apply. Both D and E apply, right? You could multiply 865 by 1 and 2500ths, or you could solve for x. X over 65 equals 125 over 100 and figure out what x is. Number 4, plant A grew at a greater rate. All right, make sure you can figure out why that is. All right, number 5, the percent errors were the same. You can see after you divide the percent or the actual error by the original amount, you end up with the same percent error. Right, and then it says answers will vary in number 6. All right, so I'm sure most of you have the correct answer, but your work should be showing for the gloves a 20% decrease and for the swim goggles a 25% increase. So those are not the same, even though the amount of change is the same. Since the original amounts are different, they're not the same. All right, if you had any trouble with any of those, please circle them, all right, and let me know, all right, or let your teacher know. All right, last page, hand your work in. All right, we need to know that you did this, and we need to know that you were paying attention to the video, making an effort. All right, I hope you have a good day, and next time I see you on a video, it will be for lesson 14, which I believe is unit 3.